and welcome back to Car of the Month. This car's Car of the Month is the Honda Element, and I cannot find, a car more fitting for the month of March. It's ambitious, it's springtime. You still get a little bit of that off-roading, a little bit of that snow, but then you get some of the warmth. You want to go out and enjoy the beach, and you want to enjoy the start of summer and the end of fall and winter and all, the dreary states. So the Honda Element is excellent, but this is likely going to be shorter than a lot of the other videos that I like to make on cars. Because instead of it being, oh, well, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, it's more just a general collection of ideas of how the Honda Element came to be. It wasn't John Krasinski decided that he wanted a boxy SUV and said, Eureka! And then he drew the Element all in 1 hour. That's not really how it worked, but rather a collection of ideas and things that we've talked about on this channel that led to the development of it. It all starts with the conception of the SUV at the hands of the Lexus RX and Mercedes-Benz ML55. Now, we had Ford Broncos and Toyota Land Cruisers way before this. SUVs had indeed existed. But this particular breed of SUV that isn't, entirely off-road, that isn't two doors, but has more seats, is more family-oriented, and is more like a family car, a little bit wider, a little bit worse for off-roading, but, people are able to accept that, was pioneered by these luxury SUVs. So it only makes sense that when Toyota and Honda came out with their own alternatives, they would be slightly more, rough and rugged. If you can't play up to the luxury of these SUVs, you might as well go after the off-roadishness of it. The first generation Honda CR-V was rugged. It was bold, it was very off-road capable, it was just overall a very rugged, tough vehicle. And a lot of people liked it. And, it was a successful way of doing things, but Honda, they kind of knew that the tides were turning. They knew that these cars were going to become not just off-roaders and stuff like that, but general lifestyle vehicles, and that young people that would buy these now may want them for their families, may want them a little bit bigger, may want more versatility, more storage, and Honda wanted to be able to be a company that would be able to provide this type of vehicle. Think about the Toyota Corolla Cross and the Toyota RAV4, which is, again, something else we've talked about on the channel. The only reason why the Toyota Corolla Cross exists is that the Toyota RAV4 can get away with being bigger and more expensive. The adults buy the Toyota RAV4, and the teenagers and single moms and all those people buy the Corolla Cross. You've got your small, affordable car, or in this case, SUV, compact SUV, that allows the other actual model to succeed better in the market that it's designed for. If the RAV4 was trying to be off-roady and have 3 rows and do all this stuff at the same time, it just wouldn't be successful. And this was the issue that they were having with the CR-V. It couldn't be everything at once. It couldn't be a family vehicle, couldn't be, a fun off-roader, and, and this is something people don't think about. It takes anywhere from 4 to 6 years, at least according to Google, to develop a new vehicle. Probably longer than that for big car companies like Honda and Toyota. They gotta plan it out, they gotta plan it with their lineup, it takes a lot of work. Granted, they do have more people, but, So they were already planning the 3rd generation Honda CR-V while the 2nd generation was in production. And it wasn't going to be anything like the 2nd generation. It was going to be big, grandiose, large, and overall a family vehicle, which meant that the off-roady crowd who loved the 2nd generation wouldn't be able to buy it. They needed a car to take the slack off of the 3rd generation and be that all well-rounded, all-wheel drive, just fun off-roady vehicle to condense all the off-roading capability and usefulness of the Honda CR-V. Now, one car that definitely did help Honda with this was the 1st generation Honda Pilot, but they still needed something off-roady that was, generally cheap. And a proposed idea was, why don't we just keep the 2nd generation around? We have the CR-V, we make it big, we make it family-friendly. We're not going to give it a 3rd row because then it compete with the Pilot, but let's just make it as family-friendly as we possibly can. But we'll keep the 2nd generation around as, like a CR-V Sport. We're ditching the rear tire. We're ditching so much that customers are never going to be able to accept this. Now, to people who know the Honda Element, they're going to say, well, that's not what they did. And I'm going to tell you, yes, it was. This is the concept for the Honda Element. It's called the Honda X concept. This is just a 2nd generation Honda CR-V with a body kit and a slightly modified frame towards the top to support that structure, that very boxy structure which was not present in the CR-V. That's it. That's essentially what they did. And if you ever sat in a 2nd generation CR-V, which I'm very familiar of because my family owned one, they're extremely similar to the Honda Element, which I've also been in. They have the same steering wheel. They have the same gauge cluster. The dashboard, everything is in the same location. Everything. The radio, the climate controls, everything. They're all in the same location that they were on the 2nd generation Honda CR-V. Now, that doesn't mean that this is a CR-V. This isn't purely just a CR-V with a body kit. But, it kind of is. But on the surface level, they did a lot. They changed the interior, they made the floor rubberized, they gave it a split tailgate, they gave it suicide doors. They also, they modified the frame by removing the pillar between the two doors, so they have suicide doors on both sides. So they did modify the frame more than I'm letting on. But it wasn't as big of a change as you're thinking. So in the end, it turns out that the Honda, Element has a whole lot in common with the second generation Honda CR-V. Fun fact, the designer of the Honda Element, there was a team of designers on, the Honda North America, but one of the lead designers said that he came with the roof design of the Honda Element. It inspired him from surfboards. He looked at surfboards and he said, that looks like a great shape for a roof. So that's why it's kind of like a telephone. That's how I describe it. That's how we came up with that shape. And a lot of people really don't know this. I mean, they know about the surfboard roof, but do they really know that it's based on a second generation Honda CR-V? And in some ways, that's kind of a really cool thing about it. The second generation Honda CR-V, if you count the Element, was sold all the way from, 2002? 2001? All the way up until 2011. That's a long time for a car, especially in that automotive industry, which was always just taking cars in and out and in and out and in and out. Now I'm going to share with you some ads of the Honda Element. The advertising was it for the Element. It was essentially what this car depended on, and boy, was it good. It was modern, it was sleek, and most important of all, it appealed to young people.
So you hang with the surfers here at the beach a lot?
Yes, I pinch.
Yeah, I'm always down here too. Weekends. I don't mind telling you, a few sick days.
I pinch.
It's cool. I carry their boards. They change inside me.
I want to pinch.
Hey, not so close. I don't want to get pinched.
Why no pinch?
'Cause it hurts.
Maybe little pinch?
I've got some melted butter and some tongs in here, so...
No pinch, no pinch, no pinch.
Alright, now moving on to the facelifts. Now, usually there'd also be some other generation-y stuff in here, but the Honda Element has only ever had one generation, lasting from 2003 to 2011, so we're just going to be covering facelifts. First, we have the first facelift, just the first one, which came out from 2003 until 2006. These, I think, are the most attractive, but we'll get to the unfortunate reason of why you probably shouldn't buy those. I personally think that out of all these on the list, it's the most gorgeous, and I'll tell you my dream combination in a little bit. Then in 2007, they updated it again, and here's where I think Honda killed the Element. They took away its unpainted plastic body panels. I like the look of this car, but one of the only reasons I like the look of this car, at least on the original model, was because of those painted plastic trims. I thought they looked really nice. I think they look really classy. They look great. And it's a rugged vehicle, But Honda decided that they were going to treat it like a Civic from the 90s and as an upgrade on all the trim levels now, except for the base one, make them painted body plastic panels. Now, some people would prefer this over the previous one. I think it looks terrible. This just looks, first of all, it's a second generation CR-V that they're trying to masquerade as some off-road vehicle. They're not really doing it that well if you're going to take away one of the things that gives it the character. You know what I mean? This is now just a second generation CR-V. It's just, it still has a lot of the quirks and features, which we'll get into it in a minute, but I just don't like the exterior as much. But we'll get into the importance of the 2007 facelift and why you should buy a car from then on, even if they don't look as nice. And then in 2009, they kind of, they did a stinky, they did a crap. I think it looks terrible. They made it blocky, they made it blotchy, they made it thick. It just doesn't look like an Element. It looks like some concoction that Honda worked up. The bird is competing with me for the microphone here. It's just, I personally don't think it looks good. I think the first model was the best, but not the one you should buy, and here's why. The reason is airbags. Believe it or not, the curtain airbags were not available on any trim level before, 2007. So in 2007, they made side curtain airbag standard. Before that point, you couldn't get them no matter which trim level you were on. And those are kind of important for keeping glass out of your face in an accident. So what I would do if I were an Element, and if I were you and buying an Element, I would either buy a base model of the second facelift, not the third, because the third, that's just changed. But I'd buy a base model, that way you still get that plastic cladding. And then I would change the wheels out, because I like those 5-spoke wheels. The wheels from the second, I think they're the worst. They just look like generic Honda crap. The other ones look a little bit more original, but I'm just not a fan of 6 spokes. I really don't think they go well with any car ever in history. So, I would just say buy a 2007 or older. You know, it went from 2007 to 2008, so pick one of those. Get the base model, change out the hubcaps or Steelies. If you like the Steelies, you can keep those too, for the 5-spoke wheels, and that would be my dream element build. That way, when I get in an accident, which, no, it doesn't happen as often as you think it did, but when it does, damn, you're going to wish you had those airbags. So I would definitely go with the 2007 and later. Alright, now one thing that makes the, Honda Element really difficult to cover, all the way, mic change, just so that you noticed. One thing that makes this car really difficult to cover is all the quirks and features that it has that's really hard to describe. So right now, we're going to go over, like, a mini quirks and features section, because the car isn't great for one specific reason. Like, the Prius is solely great because it's a hybrid, and a few other things. But the Element is good because of a collective group of unique things. For example, the rear seats, instead of just folding flat into the ground, which wouldn't have been able to fold flat because the floor is flat. It's a flat floor from the back to the front, which is really useful for putting mattresses down. But because it doesn't do that, they actually fold up to the side. So you fold them completely flat and then up to the side like you would in a Land Cruiser, versus like a RAV4 where they just simply fold down. Quirk number 3, instead of having like a typical carpeted floor, it has a completely flat floor that is lined with plastic, not carpet, which means that, it's nearly waterproof, and it's really ideal for just having a bunch of like dirt, gardening, plants, and stuff in the back that, traditional carpet would get pretty messed up. I remember my dad has this Toyota Camry that we got from my aunt, and she had this big crock pot of Swedish meatballs, and it turned over in the car when she was driving to our house, and you can still smell a little bit of that Swedish meatball in that car because we need to take all the carpet out and recarpet it. With this car, you can spill as many Swedish meatballs as you want. Just get a broom out, sweep it, mop it down. Perfect. Also, for the entire first, before the facelift and the second facelift on the lower trim levels, it had this odometer, which curved with the circular style of the gauge cluster. So that's a neat little quirk there. I actually really like the way that it looks, and I think Honda did a great job with the font. Like, it doesn't look too out of whack. The spacing is there. They did a really nice job with it. Another quirk is that all the seats can be folded down to essentially make a bed. Like, this, to me, looks really kind of a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm sure if you shifted it the right way, like, what I would do is I would lay backwards. So I'd have my feet at the tailgate and my head at, like, the bottom of the seat, which is kind of weird, but, think about it. You've got the arch in your back where the headrest would be, and then you've got that little indent, so I think that would be actually pretty comfortable. This is actually from Japanese K cars. A lot of them do this because families that go camping and stuff, it's really nice, especially like, let's say you go camping, you're out in the middle of the woods, all of a sudden, sun sets, you're at the top of a mountain, whatever, they close the gates, shut the park down. There's nothing you can really do until it's, daytime and they open the gates back up, or you just don't feel like driving at night. Well, then just fold the seats down, roll a window down a little bit, and sleep in your car. It's not that terrible. The Prius is actually very comfortable. I've done that a few times. Not because of, sometimes you need to. Another unique feature is the suicide doors. So they do not have any pillar in between the two doors, and the doors actually open outwards. You know what I mean? Like, the doors don't open in the traditional fashion. The front doors do, but the rear doors open in reverse. This is, I think, kind of a feature that doesn't really make any sense. I would have preferred if it had traditional doors, but I overall like the styling of the car and how they styled it in, so I think that that's pretty neat. But, I can't really think of any major, like, if you need to get something through it, you could, but you can just go around it or go under it or over it or anything. And it's like, you're never really going to be driving with these open, and it's kind of annoying for rear passengers because they can't open their door until you open their door. It's a neat feature, but I don't really see any practical use for it, at least in the way that I use my vehicles. Alright, and the last one is the split tailgate. Now, having a split tailgate is the best of both worlds, because think about it. First of all, you get a place to tailgate without having to awkwardly position your legs over the bumper, but still be kind of sitting on that uncomfortable lip. So you get a place to sit, but also, you still get shielded from the rain like you would in an SUV, because you still have the top part of the tailgate. So you can tailgate, like in a truck, but you have a roof over you, which is just really, really, really nice. You technically even have a skylight because the rear window is facing up. And another thing that you don't think about, because the rear window is curved, the rain falls off to the side instead of collecting and pooling there and getting all rusty. So it's a very nice feature, and the split tailgate, it's been on the Volvo XC90 for years. Not on the new ones, but the first generation. It's just a feature that a lot of, owners like, and it's something that's genuinely useful. Like, let's say you need to put groceries in your car, you don't have to open up the full tailgate like the 4Runner does this. You just slide down the rear window, load them in, and, slam it shut, and then get in. It also means that those little, the air canisters that keep it from going up or going down too quickly, those don't wear out as quickly because it's not as heavy, because it's not as big. Alright, here we have some graphs, and I know they're a little bit small, but if you're on YouTube mobile, you can always zoom in. here is the interesting thing that the sales numbers tell us. The original purpose for the Honda Element was to essentially swoop up some of those buyers that wouldn't really want to buy the new generation of Honda CR-V. And we can see that they did in fact do that. The year that the Honda Element launched, which was based on the second generation, which was still selling, it stole about 3,000 in sales from the Honda CR-V. That's a good thing, but what's even better is that the Honda Odyssey sold 60,000 units, 67,000 units its first year in 2003. If only 3,000 of those were from the CR-V, that means that they cracked into an entirely new unit of buyers. New people were buying Hondas that weren't buying Hondas before. So in that case, the Honda Element was a success. Not only did it, take some people that wanted a more rugged CR-V, but it also took some people that just wanted a unique car. And if you look at the more boring chart showing all the performance and stuff, pretty good, not a whole lot of changes. In 2007, they gave it 6 more horsepower. I know, you're blown away. So not a whole lot to talk about here. Overall, a pretty good car. It could also come in front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. They've, of course, also got the SC trim, which is the street custom trim, I think, which doesn't really do a whole lot for power, but, overall, pretty good. So, the Element was a success, brought in brand new Honda buyers, and ate up some of that CR-V market that the CR-V just wasn't able to sustain. It gradually kept taking a little bit more in sales from the CR-V. Then, of course, when the third generation CR-V came out, of course, the sales way blasted the Element out of the water, and by that time, the Element had lost a lot of its characteristics, in my opinion, so it started selling less and less and less until in 2010, only sold 14,000 units, and was eventually killed off. Alright, now is the buyer's guide section. So if you're not looking to buy a Honda Odyssey, you can just not stick around if you don't really care about all the specs and stuff, but we're going to look through the pamphlets, and we're going to look at some actual listings. So, get ready. We're going to look through all the pamphlets of every single facelift, and then we're going to look at some actual listings to show you what you can actually expect to pay for one of these, not some random number that I just pull out of nowhere. Starting off with the first generation Element. Listen, do as I say, not as I do. Don't get these because you need the curtain airbags because it keeps the glass out of your face. But they did have side bolster airbags. And, I'm one of those people where I'll give good advice to other people, but I never take my own advice. I would 100% get a first generation. They're cheaper. I like the wheels. These wheels, I'll show you in a second. There's one image that's in both pamphlets. I'll show you that in a minute. They're just great cars. I think they look the best. I think stylistically, I love the silver bumper. That's another Quirk. I just love them. And that's the one that I would get. But you don't get it. Get the 2007 and later, even though, stylistically, I may appreciate this one more than the others. Also, the Steelies on the LX, great. On the first generation, they had these actual Steelies instead of the ones with hubcaps over them. They're all good. Here's the image that I'm talking about. They replace it with the facelifted version with different wheels, and it just doesn't look the same. Again, see, this is what some people want. They want to go camping, they want to be able to sleep in their car. Nana can stay in the nice warm car while they sit around the even warmer campfire. It's overall just a nice arrangement. Also, these wheels. These wheels were I believe they were an optional dealer-installed extra. Same with the blue. I like the blue cladding, but I don't really think it went well with any of the colors. These wheels. If you get a second generation, get these wheels. I think they're by far the second prettiest looking wheels on an Element. And then here are, if you're planning to buy one, you can pause the video and, look at the specs here. So, yeah, you can tell exactly what, you want from each of these just by pausing the video there. Now let's go on to this image. Let's flip through the facelifted version. If you have a Honda Element, they're all fine. You're never going to go wrong buying an Element, but some I think are prettier than others. And I think that these wheels, they just don't do it for me. I don't want to rag on this one too much because this is the second best generation. They got it right the first time, then they kind of ruined it. I think that these wheels go the best with the one without the plastic cladding, but with the plastic cladding, all this stuff, I think these wheels, they just beat it out. They just beat it out. They just do. Also, I would get the LX because that's how you get the plastic cladding. The green was fine. They came with a lot of good colors, but again, I think all colors look good. The reason why this red looks so good is if this was just a cakey red, it wouldn't look good. But because it has these plastic, elements to it, because it has those elements to it, I think it really adds a lot to the color and the style of the vehicle. And when you get rid of that, I just don't think it has the same spirit. Again, got that cool, what is it? It's not the tachometer, it's the, I know what this is, it's the thing that tells you how many miles the car is doing, the odometer. And they've also given it this, blue background here. This was in our Odyssey growing up, and I thought that was, the neatest thing ever. It looks so futuristic. I said, I can't wait to drive that car when I turned 16 in, 2020, and then we got rid of it, 2 years earlier. It's a fine car, you know. This is someone's, like, probably personal collection, so they blurred that out. Overall, it's a good car. Oh, also, they changed the wheel cover, so if you get the LX of this generation, you'll get the wonderful, wonderful Steelies. But they decided Steely Dan should go away, so they added these hubcaps. Now, moving on to the image. I mean, they both have plastic cladding, and I think plastic cladding really does not help these wheels. Because, like, this just, to me, with the 5-spoke, just looks better. And I think harmony is a big thing. I think they both go fine with the plastic cladding. Like, these do not clash. I just really, and this is all personal preference, but I think that 5-spoke and doughy is the secret to good wheels. Like, they had a Nissan, I believe it was the Nissan Altima, they had hubcaps. We had that car. I thought it was the prettiest wheels I've ever seen, even though it was not a Nissan and the rest of the car was shit. It's just about the wheels, like, the styling that you like. Again, this looks really good. Like, this looks great. Like, bolt on the extras. Like, this looks really, really, really nice. They also had a tailgate tent, but this isn't talked as much as the Aztec because it wasn't really built in as much as it was a dealer added on extra. Here you go. Here's the spec sheet. If you really care that much, I think it's pretty great. The SC. The SC is collectible, but I don't know why. Like, you know where some people, like, they like an object, and they like a rare version of the object, even if it doesn't do any things that the object does. Like, imagine an iPhone without a touchscreen. It's like, well, it's collectible because it's rare, but it's not really a good thing. Like the Element. The SC may be a good car, but I don't see the reason why Honda decided to do it. Like, I get that they were trying to ring in young people, and young people like fast and go anywhere, and I get that was what they were trying to go for, but the regular Element could have done that. I kind of guess where they're coming from. Oh, young people like fast things, so if you just make this car that's already geared to young people look fast, they'll buy it. Yes and no, but first of all, it's worse at off-road, because I believe the ground clearance was the same, but this is just going to catch on rocks easier. This just, you know, there are actually 2 generations of the SC. They introduced it in, like, 2009, and then in 2010, they facelifted it. So, there's, like, I'll show you when we get to the listings, but there's, like, a little cutoff there. This is the facelifted SC, and then there's a regular SC. They also gave it nicer wheels, which was fine, but again, it's not going to be as good at off-roading, and it's going to be a terrible track car. Just terrible. It's just flat. It's just flat everywhere. That's good for off-roading, but, you know, if we're going super fast around the track, it's like taking a rock, like a Pinewood Derby car. I mean, it's like, it's a block of wood. The interior was nice. They added navigation, which was nice. I would rip this out of one of these, take it in the other 2 generations. I believe in the first generation, you could get it later on as, like, a dealer added extra. And for the facelifted version, I believe it was just, you know, on the EX. Leather, they also had leather. They just tried to make it like a regular Honda. And it just didn't really work. They also gave it, like, these wheels are nice. They're, like, 2-tone. But they're kind of fleshy. Like, they look like Patrick Star. Like, I've never really gotten along with them. Especially compared, like, these wheels are fine, but these wheels are immaculate. You know, like, when you have this lying around, why would you want these? And also, again, smaller tires. Smaller tires is the worst thing you could do to your car. It lets more noise, vibration get through the wheel material to your chassis, and your suspension can only do so much. Like, your suspension's job is to take out the big stuff. Why? Well, because your tires are made out of rubber, and the only thing that should be touching the car between, you know, the road and your car is air and rubber, so that, you know, the suspension deals with the big stuff. Your tires deal with the little stuff. And when you have less of the tire, less air in the tires, and rims that are bigger that absorb more crap, like, compared to these 2 cars, if they hit a bump, you're going to be feeling way more in this car than you ever would in this, just because of the size difference in the tires. Also, the hubcaps, I think they look nice on the LX. It's fine. Again, the plastic cladding, it just looks better with cladding. I mean, I also like that they kind of, if you're going to make it look like a road car, make it look like they're all technically road cars, but they don't look like traditional, like, traffic until they became traffic over time. But this is a little bit too normal for the Element. Like, these and this grille, it's very Honda Pilot-y compared to, you know, the original. I need a front view of the original. Front view of the original. Front view. Compared to this, which looks a little bit more unique. And now moving on to listings. Orange. I think, let's talk about colors. I think orange was the best. Green was the second best. Blue was the best. We'll get into that later. Also, this plastic cladding. You can tell they've tried to wipe it. I mean, the salt to the road just sticks to it. I've been in Cleveland a lot, and a lot of these you see here, especially when the salt comes around, it just sticks to it, and it does not let go. So I would definitely treat it, or, you know, if you really care that much, get new cladding. I know they still sell it. But it's fine. It doesn't bother me. I don't really care. Also, the leather. I mean, it's gonna wear like any other car. It's just technically kind of, if you want to be like, you know, there's like those TikToks, he drives an old Toyota and then it's like a Supra or something. It is like an old Honda. I mean, that's boiling it down to like, that's like when you leave water in a pan and let it boil for 24 hours and like the water's just in the air now. It's just steam. That's like, you're boiling it down a lot, but it is an old Honda and it will age like, you know, an old Honda. Here's a 2009. I mean, I don't know. They're all fine cars. Like, an Element is better than no Element. But they straightened this out, which is kind of sad. Yeah. It's fine. Here's it in red. Who would get red? Like, I kind of judge Element owners based off of what color they have. Like, I know you find them used and you get that car. But I mean, like, if you bought it from new, like, the blue is nice. The red, why would you get the red when you can have the orange? I just think the orange looks infinitely better. The SC, here is another thing you need to watch out for. Some people don't understand the harmony of a vehicle. And so they will say, oh, well, these SC rims, this is the first generation, by the way. So remember this one? This is the second generation. It's so hard not to call it generation since they're facelift. This is the facelifted SC, and this is the first generation 2007 SC that they introduced here. I actually prefer the first generation SC. Like, I just like earlier Elements, even though they don't come with curtain airbags, so you shouldn't get them. These wheels look nice, and a lot of people will look at those nice wheels and say, you want to know what that looks nice? I'm going to put it on my Element. And we get Elements like this. A 2003 first facelift, and they just look terrible. I just don't think they look good on this car. I don't think they match with this car. They much better with this car. You know, because you've got the color of that there, and then the silver of the body. You know, like, it just makes sense for the SC to be on a normal car, but not really on, like, another one. Orange, that was a good car. The blue was a good car, although I think this combination, like the Steelies and the blue, is nice, but it's kind of off-putting. It's kind of like a new Ford. Green. I love green. Green is such a good color. I just love green. I think green is it's so pleasant, you know what I mean? The 2008, it's fine, you know, it's okay. Why did you have to cheap out? Why couldn't they have just put curtain airbags on the first gen? I love that. Yeah, but here's what you can be willing to pay. And this is another thing that I would say. Like, for the 2004s and anything earlier than 2010, you're going to be paying a lot less than the 2009s, the 2010s, because these just look like more normal cars. So people that are looking for a normal car are naturally going to gravitate to this versus this, because it looks like a CRV. So I would personally get, like, the 2007... Well, not me. Like, I think you should get that. I personally get, like, a 2003, 2004. But do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, so with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know if there's any quirks or features in the comments that I missed, which I'm sure there is thousands. You know, in a world full of boring SUVs, the Honda Element was something different. It was something special, and it actually sold really well. It was a great car, it was a great SUV, and it's still a fantastic car today. And they're cheap used, they're very collectible, and they're great. So with that, I'm so happy that I was able to give it its spot in Car of the Month, which it deserves, and I'll see us all real soon.